Good morning, and my name is Tiziano Hara. I needed to introduce myself. I work for an organization called the Cooperative Alternatives, and we are based in Belfast, and we are a cooperative development body in the sense that we are a group of very passionate practitioners that with skills and knowledge of cooperatives, and we really help groups to set up their own cooperatives. So this webinar is part of the series that we call the Discover Co-ops series. And the reason is that the reason why we call the Discover Co-ops is because I think in Northern Ireland in particular, this type of form of business is not as popular as any other business. And despite a great tradition, a great history of cooperative business in Northern Ireland, especially in the agriculture and the credit union sector. But what is this series? This series is just a series of brief encounters with members, sometimes the founder members of both emerging and well-established cooperatives. And they are only 1 hour break. So they are only 1 hour lunch hour usually. Full of information, we hope. And sorry, I'm meeting somebody else. And these webinars wanted to be a space in which we can share learning and skills so that everyone is a little better, more equipped to run and set up their cooperatives after every time we encounter each other. So as you can imagine, this is the aim of these lunch hour breaks. We wanted to bring and share as much knowledge as possible. So the good news is that we have a lot of webinars and we are trying to create really an interest around the concept. So in March, we done one on housing cooperative at the beginning of March. Today, we are meeting the folks from Venture Folk. And then we also have a couple of webinars with the Dublin Food Co-op, that is the Cooperative Advantage and the Cooperative Journey in April. And those are with the Dublin Food Co-op, but open to the wider community. We also have a couple of cooperative skills series in which we really go down, it's training sessions, how you do something, how do you set up a cooperative? How do you set up a community farm that is a co-op? So in some sort of way, we have a variety of events coming up. Most of these events are sponsored and supported by the Belfast City Council, I have to say. That they are really trying to highlight why cooperatives could be an option to run our local economy. So without any kind of delay, I would like to introduce today to our guest speakers that they are both founder members of Venture Folk, Chris Shannon and Helen Keys. And they are really very new to the cooperative world, if I may say so, not inexperienced, but certainly with this venture. Venture Folk was set up in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic. This is probably makes the bravest group of all. But they define themselves as a group of innovators and doers, and collectively share their skills in a work-owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So I'm looking at the agenda today. You will be very happy to hear that there are no presentations, not at all, but we have a conversation. I ask your permission to lead this conversation with a few questions to Venture Folks so that they can tell us their story first. But then I would like to open the floor to whoever is in the room and ask the questions and learn from this experience. So, say so. I hope now to go back to not sharing any screen, but looking at each other in the eyes virtually, and start with welcome, Chris, welcome, Helen. Thank you for giving your time. So we understand that, you know, Venture Folks, a very, very young cooperative. So tell us about how it all started with your cooperative.
Chris, do you want to? Well, I'll start. We started with coffee. That was our starting point. Chris and I met for a coffee in McGee, I think it was, and had a chat about. Well, we were working together for quite a while on various things, and just I think we both had the idea that we would like to create something new, create some new opportunities for working together, and that there were, you know, other people out there that we like working with, and that we could create something new and different. And I think it took a little while. I don't know if you'll agree with this, Chris. It took a while for me to get my head around what we were all about and what we were going to do. And maybe we'll talk a wee bit later about, you know, how we sort of worked on our culture and worked on our you know, our purpose, really, because that took a while to emerge. But it all started with a cup of coffee and a chat, and then gradually bringing more people in. Chris, I'm going to let you talk more about.
Yes, yeah, and we wanted to hear Chris as well. Was that your recollection of facts, Chris?
Yes, it did all start with a coffee. I think it was in the Mac actually in Belfast. We had a nice lunch in there, and as Helen said, it really came about from us delivering a few projects together. We both have experience working with startups. My day job is working with startups on a daily basis, and I do that at Ulster University. Helen does that in her role at Queen's University as entrepreneur in residence. So I guess one of the challenges that sort of brought us together for a coffee is we noticed that there's a lot of really great innovators, really great ideas and concepts and innovations that we see when we work with young ambitious entrepreneurs. And what often happens is they get really good job opportunities, and those really good innovations and solutions to really impactful problems fall to the wayside. So we started exploring over a cup of coffee, like what way can we do this? What way can we make sure that these solutions that have the potential to make real world global impact can actually go forward and can actually, you know, not get left behind? So that's where our conversation started, and that's where the origins of Venture Folk, the name, came from, was because well, my day job is focusing on helping people launch new ventures, and we wanted to see how the cooperative model could help us combine skills and combined experience to make it happen.
Can we talk about the combination of skills, because you are not the only members here in One Venture Folk. Talk a bit about the skills also the other members, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. So one of the things, sorry, Helen, one of the things we'd noticed the biggest frustration from getting new ventures created or launching new ventures is the cost, you know, that obviously incur when you hire in skills or expertise that you don't have. That might be legal expertise, design expertise, and particular product knowledge. So what we really wanted to do was to be able to provide and build a collective or a community that removes those frictions so that we can solve problems by creating new ventures, by using the collective skill and expertise of our members. So it meant that through sweat equity, through just pure wanting to get stuff done, that together we can combine our skills and resources to make stuff happen and not have to rely on investment or an early stage funding to get stuff off the ground. Really, at this point, this was in the middle of the pandemic, and we've seen a couple of solutions that were really needed, and we knew collectively if we put our minds together with our experiences from different areas. So to give you an example, you know, my background would be marketing, customer acquisition, advertising agencies, but more recently over the past 4 or 5 years is working with startups on a one-to-one basis. But we also have a designer who owns a design agency, software engineer who has their own software company, a multidisciplinary designer who does a wonderful range of different things, and you know, so we've had quite an eclectic mix, and Helen will tell you a little bit about her background too. But it was really about bringing that eclectic mix together and seeing what that mixing pot will brew, what will come out the other end. I don't know if you have anything to add, Helen, to that.
Helen, do you want to add a bit more about your background and how maybe did you recruit the other members? What was your approach to bring people in?
Yeah, I think our approach to bringing people in at the start was certainly about getting a mix of skills and complementary skills. That was really important. But for me, what was more important was it needed to be people who cared about the same things that we cared about, who had the same sort of work ethic that we had, who were keen to try new things and to be innovative. We at an early stage agreed to put at the core of our work the sustainable development goals, that those should be, front and center to any project that we take on needs to contribute to the sustainable development goals. And so it was people with those kind of shared values, I think,
Yes,
was part of it. In terms of recruitment, I have to say it was a case of going, I know somebody who'd be, I know somebody. That it wasn't a very formal process, but that actually, it was people we had experience of working with and knew, shared our values, shared our work ethic, and would be good.
and can you give us an example maybe of how your skills came together to help, one of your projects? How did you find working together and serve a third party, and how that was supported by your cooperative values?
I think Helen will be able to take the lead in this one, but I'll just maybe preempt it by saying that one of the core aspects of why we wanted to create Venture Folk was that any of our members could come forward with a solution to a problem that they may personally be passionate about, or that they have identified as something that needs to be solved, and use the collective expertise to do it. And that's exactly what kicked us off on our first project, which is what Helen will be able to fill you in on, because it was her brainchild.
So but the projects that we're doing tend to be they're mostly sort of passion projects, things that we really care about, and then we have the sort of group of skills to actually take them forward and make them happen, which is just an amazing position to be in. That I had this idea that I'd been sort of sitting on for ages, and I was just, in just getting really sick of this sort of, somebody should do this and somebody should do that, and wouldn't it be great if somebody did this, but never actually taking those ideas forward. And that for me was what Venture Folk was going to allow us to do. So one of the ideas that I pitched to Venture Folk at an early stage was, I'm a farmer, and one of my problems as a farmer was I know I need to change how we're farming, because every farmer in the country needs to change how they're farming. Don't get me started on that one, because we'll definitely be here to tea time. But I had this idea about, if we could create a sort of platform that could advise me as a farmer on what I should be growing that would suit my soil and that would suit my location, but also that maybe a restaurant or somebody down the road wanted to buy, and also that there isn't another farmer already growing down the road, that would be a brilliant thing that I would use. And I'd been talking to loads of other farmers, and they all felt that was something. So it was one of those ideas that kind of just seemed to fill a gap. And the beauty of Venture Folk was I was able to sort of pitch that to them, get the software developer to sort of sound out, well, how might that work, talk about what the brand might look like. I put in an application for funding to Innovate UK, and we were really lucky to get that, and that gave us a sort of launch, so that we actually have funding to actually make that happen now. So Source Grow is not far off launching now, which is brilliant. So that was kind of project number one, but we have other irons in the fire that are completely different ideas, because they're somebody else's passion project, but they're equally valuable, they're equally important to get done, and Venture Folk's a vehicle for delivering on those.
So you have this kind of multidisciplinary kind of structure where each member brings a particular skills, but also where the members themselves can pitch an idea to. Do you also have people outside the workers' cooperative you invite pitch from other people, or it's only internal to the members? How does it work?
At this stage, it has just happened. It's just been internal to the members, but the plan is absolutely to, at some point, when we've built up a bit of funding and we've built up a sort of when we get these projects that we're doing at the minute out of the way, that we would absolutely be keen to take on other projects. You know, once we've delivered on the ones we're working on at the minute. So, Chris, do you want to...
Fantastic. Chris, maybe you can also tell us a bit more. How do you work, given that the members have a different kind of experience and skill? How do you maintain the balance, the democratic balance, that not, you know, one voice can be heard more than others? How can you collectively decide, for instance, on which idea goes forward and which ideas maybe needs to wait? I don't know.
That's a great question. And I think we're still to really nail that one down as we progress on. As Helen mentioned, we've been very lucky to get the first project that we had all agreed to take forward secured significant funding for the whole team to actually be able to work on it. So that was a lucky strike to begin with. I think when it comes down to actually deciding projects that may not be able to, you know, get funding for quite a while, that will be a different conversation. But in terms of working together, we naturally do it quite well. I think, you know, everybody within all the founding members have their own businesses. So we're all used to working professionally with many different clients and many different stakeholders. But I think also by getting the founding member team right, and by doing that horizon scanning and scoping out at the beginning, you know, who do we want to find this with? That has also helped because we're all approaching it with the same mentality, with that shared responsibility, shared ownership. And that's why we chose the cooperative model. You know, arguably it would have been much easier for us to be a limited company and just a limited company, especially when it comes to some of the challenges which we'll talk about later on. But we particularly like the cooperative model because in our structure, we are equal and we are contributing equally, and that sets the tone for how we work together in everything that we do.
I heard you mentioning sweat equity. That's a particular type of approach that quite a lot of workers cooperative would kind of yes, avail of. Would you like to tell us how does it work, that sweat equity, or if it's working within your very early stage cooperative?
Sure, yeah. So one of the ways we had looked to address this at the beginning was, well, Helen's idea of having this time bank as such. So we knew there's going to be elements of projects before they may secure funding or before they're successfully bid for something to deliver it, that there's going to be an element where we will need to provide work that we're not going to get paid for. But so the way we've looked around that was looking at a time bank, and this again just relies on each member being really honest with the amount of time that they commit to different projects. For example, Helen may do on a particular project quite a bit of the invoicing and payment out of the bank account, and that's going to be time in the time bank because that's her precious time that she's given to venture folk. But likewise, I might work with you, Tiziana, on the membership policy, and that's going to be time into the time bank for my time as well too. Now, the idea is that obviously down the line, when there's a surplus and there's an AGM, we could make the decision that we say, look, we initially, based on the amount of hours each person has in the time bank, there's a certain percentage of the surplus which will go to covering, maybe on a, you know, to covering the cost of that or the remuneration in some way. Or it may be within an AGM, we could decide that actually, no, all of the surplus is actually going to be used to fund new venture projects from the beginning and get that circular flow of, I guess, fuel that keeps fueling these new ventures that come out of the cooperative. Yeah.
That's an interesting, and the sweat equity, it's an interesting tool to use and very much connected to then dividend distribution at the end of your financial year, if there is any dividend. Interestingly, some cooperatives do pay that dividend, not in monetary terms, but I remember a bakery in Scotland that was paying dividends in bread. So it's interesting how sweat equity as a concept of shared resources can be then divided. But I really wanted to know a bit more about what did you find challenging when you were setting up the cooperative. And I know that we all tried to focus on the positive, but we also learn from what we encounter as a problem. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I think I find it challenging. It took me a while to get my head around exactly what a co-op was and why we would do it that way and so on. We both come from, corporate backgrounds. We're used to working in big organizations or being self-employed or limited companies. And it was a new structure for me. So that unfamiliarity was a challenge at the start, just to get my head around all of those rules and regulations. And the sort of the legal stuff. And I mean, I have to say your help was invaluable in that, Tiziana. It was so useful to have your guidance there, to give us confidence as we steered our way through all of that. That was brilliant. For me as well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, that thing of just deciding who we were and what we were all about and our purpose and our core values. And we spent a long time kicking that around. And I think that time we spent kicking that around was really invaluable. We've set up a Notion. Notion's a sort of collaborative platform that we use. So we have Notion going, all the founder members are involved in that. So that's like our, that started off basically as a big whiteboard online where we all put in, and this was at your prompt, actually. We put in a whole load of stuff about what we cared about and what, made us tick, how we like to spend our time at work and what jobs that we hated doing. And spend a long time sort of really getting to know each other really well, stuff we liked, stuff we hated, stuff that made us angry, all of that. So there was a lot of sharing at the start, and I think that was invaluable time, really well spent. And then we started to craft the vision and the values. We talked a lot about sustainable development and the need to put that at the heart of it. And it evolved a whole, with the support of the branding agency that's involved, developed this whole nice brand and ethos. And by brand, I don't mean we just got ourselves a logo. We spent a long time thinking about pillars and values and all of those things. So that was the first challenge. Chris will talk to you about the bank account, which was a big challenge too.
I was going to let you talk about the bank account. Dear.
I will if you want. I don't mind.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, I'll let you start off. You did most of the initial challenge, Helen, so I'll let you take that.
So we ran into trouble at an early stage when Innovate UK had awarded us funding, and it was sort of we'd only just formed really at that stage. We were early stages, and we hadn't actually got ourselves a bank account opened. And Innovate UK suddenly awarded us this money and wanted a bank account number to put the money in, and we didn't have a bank account. And it turned out not to be that simple a thing to open a bank account for a cooperative. I tried online banks first of all, because there was a list of approved banks, and I thought they were going to be the quickest. The likes of Starling and so on would have been the quickest to get up and running. But even though you're a limited, you're on the limited company, the Companies House lists and all of that didn't work with their app. And it didn't matter that we were legally formed. If it doesn't work with the app, it doesn't happen. So that ruled out all of those online banks. And we went round the houses with other banks, but it was obviously a matter of urgency because the time scale on that project was really, really tight. So Chris and I were firing out emails left, right and centre to all our contacts and trying to get help with getting that sorted. So we did in the end. Ulster Bank, I'll give them a mention. Ulster Bank got an account set up for us in super speedy time in the middle of a pandemic, which was really helpful.
Can I actually explain also that one of the issue was that as a cooperative, you are registered with the Financial Conduct Authority, and your details are only transferred to Company House. And this is the issue, that most of the banks do recognize the directors that appear on Company House, but not on the mutual register. And that's something that we needed to highlight. And we keep highlighting at different levels, so UK level with the Cooperatives UK, that I know that they are campaigning for that to change. But certainly that is actually the one of the issues, that once the entity is registered, it's difficult to see it. It's not as visible as a company. Would you agree, Chris? That was the issue?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why we were really lucky to have been working with you, Tiziana, and I also have been introduced to Co-ops UK as well, because at that point it just so happened uh, the poor lady had reached out to say, "How are you getting on? Just checking in. How's everything going?" At this point, we had sent emails to every bank you could possibly imagine, and we were getting no, no, no. And I think this was obviously, I should mention at the time, it wasn't just because we were cooperative. It was they weren't open business bank accounts for anybody. They were backed up with the loans that were obviously going out, and it was just a crazy time. But yes, the lady from Cooperative UK reached out and asked if there's anything they could do, and I was like, "Did you know that we can't get a bank account? How are we supposed to operate a business?" And I went off on one, but turns out, as you said, it's a quite a common problem. But what they did was they sent through, interestingly, they had a template already prepared that they send out to their members and say, "Send this document to your bank, and it will explain to them what a cooperative is and the differences. While although it's on Companies House, it's registered financial conduct authority, etc., etc." So that helped us. But we also then at that point had reached out to a couple of local organisations, and that document has now made its way to a parliamentary group because we were able just to be like, this is a big problem we need to solve. And as venture folk, the whole reason we exist is to solve problems. So that was one of the ones we wanted to make sure was escalated. And Colin from Social Enterprise Northern Ireland has taken that on for us. So yeah, that's a good example of how the collective support from from the local community, from yourself, Tiziana, from the council, and from the Cooperative UK was really got that over the line.
And it definitely, this is a highlight so that cooperatives do have real barriers and do encounter real barriers. And most of the time is because we are not well known, or because it's a form that has a kind of dropping disuse in some sort of way, but is emerging again. Do you wanted to say a bit about why do you think cooperatives are re-emerging? What do you think is the attraction nowadays to work collectively? Now, you said that the attraction for you was to share your working environment with a multidisciplinary membership. That was your attraction. But in general, do you see that there is an emerging interest in cooperatives?
Yeah, I'll start, Chris, and I'm sure you'll have your own opinion on this. But I think there's a big change in attitudes to business generally. Chris and I both work a lot with students and young people and young startups, and I certainly I've been doing that for like 15 years, and in the last 5 years, I see it's completely transformed in terms of people's motivation for wanting to do something. And people, generally the startups I'm working with are much more motivated by what they can do for the world, as opposed to I want some money in my pocket. They're much more interested in a sort of wider public good, and that just fits, I think, a lot better with the cooperative way of working. It's not about those sort of more traditional corporate structures, which are just very focused on somebody at the top making a lot of money. So I think that shift in purpose and motivation might have something to do with it.
Thank you, Helen. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I'll just echo that and say that, from where we work as well, and from looking outside and working with a lot of enterprise support organizations, we see a lot more people going self-employed or becoming self-employed or wanting to work for themselves. And arguably, that's the future of work, is portfolio careers. It's not these long-term careers within large corporates. And because of that, you've got more individual workers working independently that still crave this sense of community, sense of belonging, sense of just that bit that you would miss, and we all probably miss now from if we were used to working in an office environment, is that being on a journey with someone. So I definitely think that that is where cooperatives become more attractive, because you can share the journey with someone, but still be equally as independent, but equally as together, in a shared way. And I think that's something that really attracted us. You know, as I mentioned, we all have our own businesses. Some of us are also employed on the side of that, and this was just a vehicle really for us to be able to take action, get stuff done, and the cooperative structure allows us to build a foundation and a structure around that that just makes it easier to do that. Yes, okay, arguably we could have been a group of 5 people that just decided to do things, but the structure and the cooperative and binds us together with an obligation to make it a venture in itself. So yeah, I would definitely say there's an increase in, just to echo what Helen said around that social impact is definitely on the rise from, you know, we've each together probably work with over 100, you know, new businesses every year, and definitely that social impact is something high on the agenda.
Well, thank you very much. I think that we can wrap up our conversation among our 3, because I'm concerned that there is people here that may wanted to ask questions. One thing I wanted to say before we go: when is your project going to launch? Because in that way we want all to be there to support your project. Source Grow.
Source Grow. It'll be out on socials this week.
Very good.
Source Grow. We're aiming for a launch in June.
Thank you, and we will keep an eye and support you in the first project that you have done as a cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you for telling us your story. It's a very early stages, as we know. I mean, this is a cooperative was born in August 2020, really. With the development was a bit done, but registered in 2020 in August. So, anyone has any questions that they wanted to really get more information from? Oh yes, Philippa, welcome.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I arrived a little bit late. I was putting my daughter to sleep, so apologies, I didn't see the beginning. I have to say, I've been quite interested in this type of working co-op for a while. Just to let you know, I'm based in Ireland, in the Republic. And when I saw this presentation, I went to look for your website, Venture Folk Online, and I couldn't find it. So I was a little bit, you know, like I just wanted to see like more or less what type of skills you would have, you know, like more, how would you like to work? And the reason being, so let me see if I can target this question so that I don't take all the time. I have a set of skills, so I'm trying to set up, you know, like my own business, but I would be very interested in working in this type of way, in an interdisciplinary, you know, like environment. However, and because I am starting my own business, I'm now thinking, is it reasonable for me to have my own business and then in parallel maybe see if there's a group of people who want to do like a workers co-op as well? Because can you live, would you, if you would only be putting like your efforts on the work that the co-op has, like would you be able to live from the work that comes from that? Would you be able to quit your own business and just dedicate yourself to that, or do you only see this working as having kind of like the two, you need to be really like doing two things at the same time?
Can I'll chip in first. First of all, on the website, that we are a victim of having spent so much time kicking our vision and values and pillars and all of that around, and we haven't actually translated it onto the website. And then we got sort of distracted a bit with Source Grow and so on. But we will be getting something up in the next week or two. Promise. We have we have beautiful branding. It's absolutely gorgeous. Just not live yet, but it will be shortly. In terms of your question about being self-employed and also a member of a co-op, I guess it depends on the co-op. We all have our own things going on in our lives, and it was it was what part of the debate at the early stage was, you know, is this about us getting more work for us as self-employed people, or is it about, you know, something else? And it's, I suppose it's a little bit of both. For me, we were all actually really busy already in our own lives. So I think for us, venture folk is actually more of that. It's more about being a vehicle for those joint projects that we want to deliver. And we didn't particularly need it to deliver on giving us work for our self-employed businesses. But that's not to say that a cooperative couldn't do that. It absolutely could. I think. I mean, Tiziana may have an opinion on that as well. But do you want to come in there?
Yeah. Okay. Let us, Chris. Do you want me to say something? Certainly. You needed to really consider what you want. What is the added value of your cooperative in your own working life? So if you have something going on and then you wanted to form a cooperative with other people, you needed to really be careful not to enter into an organization then it can stop you developing, but actually enhance your development. And I think this cooperative has shown to us that there is an added value of creating cooperative of freelancer professionals that add something to their working life. And that's the things that maybe you needed to really think about it. Also, there are a lot of conflict of interest, and I'm sure that is something that cooperatives at any level and any type of cooperative, because the cooperatives are made of individuals, you know, or organization. And anyway, there are companies societies that really needed to look at in which way they deal with their conflict. So it's not easy, but if there is added value, go for it. And then depends on how successful is the cooperative. Then if you can make enough money, then you can decide. But many of these cooperatives that they are coalitions of freelancers or professionals do survive on top of what other people is doing because they are adding something. Chris?
Yeah, I would just add to that a little in terms of saying that, you know, artist collectives and creative cooperatives have existed for a long time, and it's quite a common model. I guess what we wanted to do was take that same idea, I guess, of, you know, those joint projects coming in, deciding who works on it, but we are doing that with, rather than all artists or all designers or all creatives, we, you know, when we first sort of were pitching the idea, we used the analogy of, or we used the thought of having an architect in there, or having you know, just the random collection of skills that means that when we approach a problem, we're coming at it from loads of different perspectives to get the most innovative outcome. So I think for us, yeah, and I think it's also just on your point, Philippe, or your question around, could it be a full-time gig? I think if that's a decision that you've made and that's what you want it to be, it could absolutely become that. You know, there's room in venture folk, if we were to want it to happen, you know, we could say yes to maybe a lot more projects, and it could create employment for people, but that's not what we set out to do. We didn't want to set out to create jobs for ourselves. We wanted to set out to create a vehicle that we can deliver on what we want to do, and generate work that we want to work on as well, with people we want to work with.
So cooperatives are really vehicles to share knowledge, share skills, but also share risks. We haven't talked about that. Maybe some of the project that your cooperative wants to take on has a higher risk of not being successful, higher risk because it requires too many skills, and people do not have all that skills in one person. So sharing risk, sharing knowledge, sharing skills. Three reasons why cooperation works. Any other questions? Paul.
Hi guys, thanks very much for that. I don't know whether Helen's the best person given the start of the conversation. Obviously one of my interests here is we're doing our due diligence about the structure for a collaborative group under the Invest Northern Ireland Collaborative Programme. And we've looked at company limited by guarantee, a community interest company. Co-op is on the list, possibly wanting to be a bit different and see if something fits. What would your thoughts be, Helen?
I think that's quite hard to answer, Paul, without knowing more about who your members are and what their mission is and what you want to get out of the collaboration.
So
but I'm happy to have a conversation in more detail at some point about it if you want to, if that's any help. But do you want to give us a quick?
Well, very briefly. So we've got a group of tourism businesses from the Mourne area who are collaborating to create saleable experiences and to promote those experiences to drive tourism to the area in general and for the benefit of the cluster members. So the formal organization needs to take place in order to ensure there's governance. It'll not be profit making, but it may have to generate an income through maybe even membership contributions, membership fees, or sources of funding other than just the invest funding. And that funding would be used potentially to market, whether it be online websites, booking engines, whatever it is, the products which the individual members have. In terms of the structure, you've got anything from hotel groups, large hotel groups who are well known in Northern Ireland, through to individuals who are running glamping sites or self-catering accommodation or restaurant, outdoor activity providers. So very much a range of different sizes of organizations and ranges of different intellectual property, I suppose, of the business owners in terms of their experience. Does that help?
No, that's very good. Tiziana, I think you might be better placed to answer what you think the most appropriate structure is.
Well, it's certainly any time that you have a group of people having and sharing some kind of a collective vision, but also need. Because at the end of the day, cooperative are born out of the need of a collective. So like if we look at what Helen and Chris actually were building a cooperative out of a need that they identified like missing something in there. So Paul, to give you some example, we worked with a group of artisans that were producing a different kind of products around Lockney, for instance. And that was helpful for them to working together because together they acquire a bigger voice in the market. So there is one, there was a very distinct difference between placing, a jam in the market as a small producer and placing it as a cooperative or a collective with a common name that could really demand a bit more from the market to actually help the producers. So that was actually that's the common model that we have in Northern Ireland. The agricultural cooperatives, they were producer cooperatives in some sort of way. But also think about other situation in which you wanted to be fair to the people working there. Cooperatives do distribute and pay better their workers because the workers are the co-owner of the enterprise. So whatever the cooperative is able to make, that redistribution in a cooperative, it's kind of immediate because it's one member, one vote. Not like in a structure, like in a company that is one share, one vote. So the distribution immediately is more democratic, or whatever is your profit. It's more democratic. So if you want, if the care is about how do we pay the people, the members within the cooperative, the workers, then think about the cooperative model because that is a very democratic way to distribute that profit. it also be, about the producer, about making a kind of a splash into the market that it can be very brutal if you are by yourself, but in a collective may help you impose or help you distribute your products better. Look at the agricultural cooperatives in Ireland. But so there are a lot of things. You need to really look at your membership. I think what Helen and Chris has given us today is reflection on what makes you stick together. Because cooperation is not something easy. It doesn't come natural. And also because we've been induced to think about competition. But in reality, cooperation is a skills that we are rediscovering now, because the world is a scary place, and we needed to put together our skills, our visions, our values together. So that's the starting work that you needed to do. But please do come in, Chris, if you wanted to add something else.
Well, I am not an expert in this, but I would say, just from what you're saying, Paul, it does sound as if it would match the cooperative model quite nicely. And maybe just something to mention is also and I'm not an expert in this whatsoever, but from my understanding, across the water, there is the Social Value Act, where a lot of government organizations through procurement and public sector organizations through procurement will be looking for the social impact that people or organizations can make as part of just being a structure of themselves. And that's where social enterprises, cooperatives, and socially driven organizations will be looked on much more favorably, I think, in the future. So that's maybe something else. We don't have that in Northern Ireland yet. I believe it was due to go through before we're in the situation we're in now. It was due to be tabled, but that's something to consider as well. I think the one good example I have always been using is the Ocean Spray example, where Ocean Spray, I think it's cranberry juice, that's a cooperative, and the farmers own the Ocean Spray brand, but collectively these farmers are benefiting from the collective marketing, everything that goes into this one brand. But there's hundreds of farmers then that benefit from that one brand, and that could be one tourism brand, it could be one tourism slogan, or whatever it might be. So I think there's definitely something there, and the structure, as I say, is of a cooperative just ties that together, that takes the informality of working together as a cluster and makes it a little bit more formal, to provide that vehicle to make professional working relationships.
And legal. And that's the main thing, that our constitution gives you exactly that description, how the members are related to each other. And the democratic principle of one member, one vote is enshrined in the legality of it. That's a good point to make. Helen, you wanted to say, or Paul, you wanted to come back? Was it useful?
That's useful. Yeah. Thank you very much, folks.
I would just add on the sort of, it's about the culture of the organization. So I think it depends a lot on the people that you have together there and how they might work together. And for me, I think if you were able to adopt a cooperative way of working, it requires, I think, people to step up and to be everybody has to have a role in driving and in being part of the organizational culture. But I think the outcome, if you can get people to come along with that, the outcome from that is like way better than just setting up a limited company. But for me,
I like that. I like that, Helen, because in reality, when you are a member of a cooperative, you are a co-owner. You have all the responsibility and the duties of a director. And in that way, you become really in charge. You are not a worker. That's it. I go home. I'm in charge of this, and I share the ownership of it. So in some sort of way, it brings people more accountable and more kind of committed to the idea. There's been quite a lot of research done by bigger organizations than ours, like Cooperatives UK, in which they are saying that cooperative structures are much more resilient, because in some sort of way, when things go not very well in the outside market, cooperatives are able to really reflect and very quickly respond because all the workers are the co-owners of the enterprises. So there is some kind of better accountability for it. It's interesting. It's an interesting model. Philippa?
I don't want to take the word from Gil because she hasn't spoken yet. So apologies if you do have another question. If I didn't get it wrong, you said that you have 5 members in your cooperative. My question is, when you started to think about interdisciplinary, were you like, these are the areas that we need people from, and then you got those people and you said, okay, now it's locked until we think that we need more? Or are you like at this point still open for more people to just apply as a new member? How are you deciding how many members are going to be working with you or not? Like, how do you do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's a good question. So when we were first kicking off, yes, we sort of knew what immediate skills we would be needing to be able to take action and get stuff done. They were going to be around the creative, the technical, and the expertise. For example, within the group, we have experience of bidding for, European tenders, but we've also got experience of working with small SMEs in cafes in Ballymena. So, we had that collective skill. We knew we wanted to get that foundation, if you like. But then, no, we didn't lock it down in any means. We just got focused on project number 1 and have been focused on there for the past 3 months now. So our intention has always been to keep it open, and to, as a cooperative, anybody will be able to become a member. But we're still at that stage of finalizing our membership policy, what it means to be a member exactly, and how that selection process, without sounding as if you're chosen, but what that process is like. And some of our initial thoughts around that is, if you've engaged, so for example, some of the expertise that we needed for Source Grow, it's not within the members. We have an agronomist, and we have a celebrity chef who are helping us, that are not members of Venture Folk, but we're thinking of, an easy route to membership could be, have you collaborated with us on a Venture Folk project in the past? Well, then you've got immediate, or you're immediately got access to membership in a more streamlined way, or things like that. So we're not closed down. We're open-minded. We want to grow. We just have to get that's probably one of the challenging things, is scaling a cooperative, and scaling it with processes and structures. We have got experience scaling limited companies, but this is a little bit more different, just because of the complexities of the multiple decision makers, which can be a little bit of a challenge. But we believe that the model itself, when scaled, has so much potential for maximizing our impact.
We've kind of gone around the houses a little. Oh, sorry, Jill, go on ahead.
No, I was just unmuting myself. No, I was just going to ask about, just Source Grow. Just, can you mention more about it, or is it under wraps? Because you mentioned about launching it in June and doing your socials and so on. So maybe it's secret.
I'm happy to talk about it. It's not
if
secret.
If we have time, I know it's nearly 2, but
no, Jill, no problem. It's not secret. The Source Grow, I mean, it's about connecting farmers and restaurants. So where we're at with it, Chris has been doing an amazing job around customer discovery and onboarding, and has basically met with, pretty much all the really good restaurants in Northern Ireland.
Somebody has to do it, Chris.
Somebody has to do it.
It's just been digitally, though. Obviously,
all right.
Having to go in and do a taster as well.
But actually, that's been invaluable, because the sort of processes that we follow, I think, are kind of, we learn a lot from each other about really good design. And even just, how Chris went about that, and how he got people on board, and how he went through, downloading from them everything that we needed to craft an amazing product that would be exactly what they needed. So, he's been speaking to farmers, speaking to restaurants, gathering all of that information. That's all going into the inputting to the design. Cheerio, Paul, no problem. That's all going into the design of the platform itself. So, what we come out the other end will be really well crafted.
Would you work with Taste of Ulster or anything on that, or?
We haven't spoken to Taste of Ulster. Slow Food UK will partner with them, and any farms that are members of Slow Food or any restaurants obviously will be badged up. We're also talking to the RSPB, who have a new scheme called Fair to Nature.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's an accredited scheme. So we'll be partnering with them as well to badge those. And what we're talking to them about is also trying to badge crops that are particularly good for nature. So individual crops like, quinoa and, things that if farmers switched from grass to quinoa, there would be a knock-on benefit for pollinators and for birds, those kind of things we're going to incorporate into it. So all of that's underway. Platform is going to be ready by June, by hook or by crook, and we'll be doing some interim testing between now and then to get it all finalised.
Okay, thank you. That's
right.
very interesting. Good luck with it all.
Well, thank you, Jill.
Well,
you're not a farmer, are you, Jill? Are you?
Oh, well, I'm horticulturalist, loosely speaking, and I did work for the 3 farming papers for like 30 years for Farmers Journal and Farmers whatever, Farm Week, and yeah.
Brilliant.
So there we go. Yeah.
Do you mind? Are you on LinkedIn? Can we drop you a wee?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah. Thanks. Sure.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for participating to this 1 hour lunch with Venture Folk. We wish you all the best, and we thank you very much, Chris and Helen, for sharing your story, and for everybody else, Philippa, Jill, and even Paul that left to really interact in this webinar. I hope that this has been useful to you, and it will be, you can see the recording on our YouTube channel. Plenty of learning lessons for workers cooperative of the future. Thank you, and see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.